In today's Farm Report, a fall pasture walk can be good for producers, especially when you're trying to evaluate how it'll handle over winter. Emily Wilmus with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office shares an upcoming event that'll cover that issue down in Belgrade.
University of Minnesota Extension, along with the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Program, will be hosting a Fall Fling Pasture Walk on Thursday, September 24th at 11 a.m. The event will be held at Borgerding Family Dairy, located at 39736 275th Street in Belgrade. The event will include information on identifying grasses, forages, and weeds in this region. There will also be a tour of the Borgerding's pasture and a discussion of options for improving it. Borgerding Family Dairy grazes their 170 cows as part of the feed requirement for their organic certification. Speakers for this event are Jim Paulson, University of Minnesota Extension Grazing Specialist, John Zinn, Minnesota NRCS State Grazing Specialist, Jeff Duchesne with NRCS, myself, Emily Wilmus with U of M Extension, and Bonnie Haugen, Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Coordinator for Minnesota. This program is offered free of charge thanks to our generous sponsors, the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship, Minnesota Natural Resource Conservation District, and the Minnesota Grazing Lands Conservation Association. Beverages and food will be provided by DGA, an initiative to train a new generation in the dairy grazing business and to give retiring farmers options for passing on the farm. Bonnie Haugen, the DGA Minnesota coordinator, will be available to answer questions about the program. This event is open to anyone interested in learning more about weed and grass identification, grazing, or the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Program. RSVPs are requested to help with food planning, but are not required. To RSVP, or if you have questions, contact Bonnie Haugen at 507-421-7170. Again, the Fall Fling Pasture Walk will be on Thursday, September 24th at 11 a.m. The event will be held at Borgerding Family Dairy, located at 39736 275th Street in Belgrade. To RSVP, or if you have any questions, contact Bonnie Haugen at 507-421-7170. This is Emily Wilmus with University of Minnesota Extension.
Specialty crop, organic, beginning farmers, all traditionally underserved by crop insurance, now have available to them whole farm revenue coverage. And starting next crop year, it will be available in all states and all counties. But as USDA Risk Management Agency Administrator Brandon Willis points out, this isn't the only change made to this crop insurance pilot program.
Some of the changes that we've made for 2016 benefit beginning farmers and ranchers. When we look at your anticipated revenue, historically, we've looked at about 5 years of history. We're shortening that to 3 years. That benefits some beginning farmers and ranchers who need that flexibility.
And there is greater flexibility for livestock producers under whole farm revenue coverage.
Before, if over 35% of your income came from livestock, you were not eligible for whole farm. Today, we've got rid of that.
Both local crop insurance agents and the RMA website, www.rma.usda.gov, have information on these and other changes to whole farm revenue insurance. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Improving one's facility can help improve one's bottom line when it comes to livestock production, but if money is tight, those improvements might not happen. Emily Wilmus with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office shares some grants that are available to producers in Minnesota that may help them with their operation.
Manual labor is a huge component of farming, along with other things like facilities and finances. Perhaps you could use some financial support to improve your labor, facilities, or another part of your farm. Luckily, there are some amazing grant programs through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. First, there's the popular Livestock Investment Grant. To be eligible, Minnesota livestock farmers must fulfill this criteria: be in good standing with the state of Minnesota, be a current Minnesota resident or entity authorized to farm in Minnesota, be a principal operator of the farm, and project expenses must be incurred between August 1st, 2015 and June 30th, 2017. Qualifying producers would be reimbursed 10% of the first $500,000 of the investment, with a minimum investment of $4,000. Qualifying expenditures include the purchase, construction, or improvement of buildings or facilities for the production of livestock, and the purchase of fencing, as well as feeding and waste management equipment. The application for this grant program is open now until December 18, 2015. Another grant opportunity that may be of interest to young farmers or large families planning transition is the Dairy Business Planning Grant. This program covers 50% of the cost of completing a business plan for a dairy operation. Producers who have applied for this grant are exploring the feasibility of expansion, environmental upgrades, stray voltage testing, or transferring the operation to the next generation producer. Applications are funded on a first-come, first-served basis. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture can provide 50% of eligible project costs up to a maximum of $3,000. The actual amount of funds awarded to any applicant is based on the viability of the project's economic impact, and fund availability. If you are interested in sustainability, there is the Sustainable Agriculture Grant. This 25-year-old program provides small grants to test ideas that could conserve natural resources, enhance profitability, and improve life on the farm. Projects can last for up to 3 years, and applicants may receive up to $25,000 for their projects. Grantees must be willing to share what they learn with others. Grants are available to fund on-farm research and demonstrations and may include farm diversification using traditional and non-traditional crops and livestock, cover crops and crop rotations, conservation tillage, or other creative ideas that focus on conservation, energy, profitability, and/or farmers' quality of life. The application deadline for this grant is December 15th of this year. This is just a small sampling of the grants available through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. For more information on these and other grant programs, visit www.mda.state.mn.us/grants/grants. Or you can call me at the Stearns County Extension Office at 320-255-6169. This is Emily Wilmus with University of Minnesota Extension.
The latest glance at U.S. ag trade, this time for the month of July, looks like this.
The agricultural exports for July were $9.8 billion compared with $9.2 billion of agricultural imports. That's a trade surplus of $600 million.
USDA economist Bryce Cook says, however, there is again another adjustment down on export forecast.
As we've seen monthly exports fall actually 7 out of the past 10 months.
Now, while there are increases in export volume in commodities like soybeans, rice, and cotton,
that's not reflected in the value because lower commodity prices exist today that weren't the case last fiscal year.
And export demand continues strong for two additional products, tree nuts and sorghum.
In value terms, tree nuts is up 10%. Sorghum exports are up 82% by volume this year and 85% by value. And a lot of that is ending up in China.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.